You're listening to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.
And welcome to Win-Win, an entrepreneurial community. I am Ben Wolf. We are going to learn from our guest today how to overcome the hardest part of your business, which is documenting your core processes. I'm going to be joined by our guest today. And before I introduce him, I want to invite everybody out there to subscribe, leave a review, like, follow, share, whatever the things are that you could do. It definitely helps us get the word out more, helps more people get the content that we're sharing here, the information, the value that we're sharing, and helps the algorithms have the podcast come up further and reach more people. So definitely appreciate all of y'all doing that if you appreciate the content here. And with that, I want to get into introducing my guest today, who is the co-founder and CEO of usewhale.io, a process documentation and integrated training system. I don't have to mention his URL because it's in the company name, at least as I said it just now. And with that, I give you Gary Vanbutsele. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And again, I apologize for any butchering of your name, which I believe we're talking from between Long Island, New York, and Belgium. So I apologize for butchering the name.
That's fine. You did a pretty good job.
All right, thank you. I do appreciate it. And so with that, I want to ask you if you could, help us out here by just giving us a little context, a quick 2-minute background on, I guess, where you came from, how you got into like process documentation and systems that help with that, like the stuff that we're talking about today. Quick background on how you got into that.
Sure. So about 9 years ago, I started my first business, which was an IT services company. We focused on small and medium-sized businesses offering IT and security services. And so we started off 9 years ago and grew the business very organically from 2 to 35 employees, plus minus. And at a certain point, about I think 5 years in, we hit that ceiling that so many small businesses hit. And we looked at a way to break through the ceiling, and we found this system called EOS, which obviously you're very familiar with.
Yes.
We actually learned it from a peer group in which we were at the time, and almost everyone was on EOS in that peer group. And so we fell in love with the system, adopted it, did
and what
everything.
Is, just for people who aren't familiar, what is EOS?
So EOS is an operating system. It helps organizations bring clarity to their
it's like
business.
A software?
No, it's a business system.
People ask me that when I say what you said. People ask me that question. So anticipating the natural question.
Yeah, no, not an operating system like Windows is from Microsoft, but I tend to call it a framework which helps management teams get a grip on the different aspects of running a business. It gives you tools, it gives you focus on what you need to do to grow your business in the way you want it to grow. And so the system helped us gain focus, it helped us aggregate data to make better decisions, it helped us improve on process. Well, not really, to be honest, because we self-implemented, because you can self-implement EOS. They have books, you can read them and self-implement, or you can have an implementer help you, guide you through that journey. But so we self-implemented, and we loved everything about the system except the part about process. And one of the ceilings that we were hitting at the time is we were hiring new employees, but we just felt like they were not getting ramped up quickly enough. We were still getting the same repetitive questions over and over again, and just overall onboarding and training just didn't feel like we were doing good enough job. And so we turned to that process component in EOS that kind of tells you, hey, you need to document your core processes and have them followed by all. But ironically, the books that help you self-implement are quite light on the documentation part. So you're kind of grasping on what you need to do. And so one of the things we did is what we found out later a lot of companies do is you document on a couple of worksheets, You put him on a drive somewhere, and they kind of go there to die. Nobody goes there. You're not using them. You're not leveraging them, and it was not solving our issues. It was not helping us delegate more things to team members. It was not helping us bring consistency in the business. It was not helping us guiding and supporting our new hires and existing staff members. So after talking to a lot of companies who were also using EOS, but also companies not running on EOS, they all kind of said the same thing. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to document. It's hard to make sure that everyone understands, hard to train people on them. And so from that challenge, we decided to do something about it. And so became Will.
Right. I definitely hear what you're saying about the challenge and the frustration that so many have. And, I think that's why I've observed at least also that documenting processes, that's followed by all thing is one of the last things that people end up
Mhm.
tackling because it's just such a, oh, I don't know, just such a pain. Like nobody
You
wants
can,
is
yeah,
just
you
so
can say it.
busy.
It is a pain. It is a
Yours
pain.
people are
Yeah.
so busy. There's no like, it's just it's so much effort, so
Hmm.
much effort. And people are and everybody's so busy and there's a million fires even to put out or just seemingly higher priorities to tackle.
Hmm.
So it just gets done last if it gets done at all. And usually I like to focus on the show on teaching and tricks and tips and things which you are going to share today,
Yeah.
but not so much on like I don't like to do like infomercials, like to do things that give value immediately. But I think that because it's such a painful area and there are a few systems out there that people may have seen ads for or maybe using, so I thought that it really would be good actually to talk about your products, right? Because
Hmm.
I personally find that very interesting. Not as an infomercial, I'm not getting any any sponsorship here. It's just to try to find and learn more about the solutions that are out there. So that's why I want to get you to talk about that. So what does Whale do? How did you aim to solve this issue that so many small businesses have with this company?
Yeah. So um, we try to solve a couple of challenges when it comes to process documentation and employee training because the two of them go hand in hand. Not
Right.
having something to train your staff members or support your staff members with, um, and just having a repository of documents is not going to do anything if you're not sharing them with your team members when they need them. So we call ourselves a hybrid between a knowledge and a training system,
Hmm.
and we aim for bringing more scalability to the system. So there's a couple of things that we do. First of all, Wheel is it's a cloud software, so it runs on the internet. All you need is an internet connection, and you can create your own workspace, as we call them. And your workspace is where we're going to give you the tools to actually start that documentation journey, which can be a pain. I agree, Ben, but it doesn't necessarily needs to be. I think one of the major issues that companies see when they start that journey is they see that mountain ahead of them, that
Hmm.
mountain of, oh,
Hmm.
we have all these processes and procedures that we want to write down and share with the team, while probably only a handful in the beginning will make a huge impact already. And it's actually just about starting the journey. And so we help through templates and we help with a service in taking that first step, making sure that you understand what the value is going to be like when you start using Whale, and just giving you all the tools like being able to write down training manuals, use images, use it from a stock library, use video, have built-in screen recording software, all from within Whale is going to help you very quickly write down what you want to share with your team, and then having that sit next to, I think, about 100 templates already that you can just grab to have like a structure, an outline of how, for example, an HR process could look like for your
Hmm.
company, and then just fill in the blanks on how you do things specifically. Or, and this is actually a very popular service that a lot of our customers use, is they outsource that part, the documentation part. And we have a network of partners that come in, they do a couple of workshops, they distill from your head what they need, and they write it down for you. So even if you don't have the bandwidth or the time, or you just don't want to do it, you can hire some of our partners to do it. And so all that documentation sits in one place, and that's where we're going to give you some tools to manage it as well, because that was a second issue. Companies that document, sometimes they forget that your processes change, your training needs to change,
Right.
and they're not updating the documentation. So it becomes this stale amount of data that nobody uses anymore because they know it's not relevant. So we have systems in place in Whale that allows you to specify who's accountable for which piece of documentation in your company, and then have them set reminders for themselves saying, hey, we need to review this every 6 months at least. And the system is going to send reminders to the persons accountable, making sure that they revise and update it accordingly. And so it's one of the things that we see a lot of customers appreciate, just that little
Right.
small thing of making sure it's relevant and up to date, because otherwise you forget.
Right. I mean, two things I wanna ask about from that. One is one is if you could talk about how it integrates with the programs that people are using already, because I
Mhm.
think that if it's more in front of them, as opposed to somewhere they have to go off on the side or somewhere to remember where it is or some link they have to track down, people are more likely to use it. And also, um, I think, and I want to put more of a fine point on what you said about the partners that you work with who help people document the processes initially. Yes, they still have to keep it up to date, but that just seems to me so valuable because so many people, it's just no one has time to deal with this. But if they can, give it over to other people who can, who know how to work in Whale and
Yeah.
can put it in there in the right way, once it's documented, um, I think that's a huge value of just, what I call as being like that initial documentation of the
Mhm.
processes is I call
Mhm.
not only the barrier to entry to documenting your processes, but the iron curtain to entry, because it's so annoying and so like hard to get to. So I just want to put a fine point on that, and also just ask you, tell me about the integration piece
Yeah.
with like
So
HubSpot or Salesforce or 90.io or whatever I might be using.
exactly. So the biggest issue was we saw not necessarily the documentation part. That's the sucky part. That's what nobody really likes to do and gets out of bed very excited about. But people know what needs to be done and it happens. The hard thing is making sure that now your teams use that information to be more successful at their jobs, be better, and just overall achieve more success. And just building another repository where people need to go to find what they need was just not our mission, because I tell this jokingly, but I truly believe it as well, is that people are lazy. We always look for the shortest route. And the shortest route when it comes to finding information that moves you forward is probably not me going somewhere looking for it, spending time, and then reading through what I need. No, the shortest route is going to be, hey, I'm going to ask Ben who's sitting next to me, or I'm going to send a Slack message or a Teams message to everyone on my team. They're going to help me get there quicker. And so for us to be successful in training and supporting teams, we needed to increase accessibility to the information that was
Hmm.
relevant. And so that's where the integration comes from. Seeing as everyone is working remotely, seeing as everyone is these days working in a variety of tools, and you mentioned some of them like Salesforce, HubSpot, 90, whatever tool you may use to run your business on, we wanted to make sure to connect that information that you've created in Whale within those tools. And so what we created was a web extension. And a web extension is a technology that lives in your browsers. And so what a Whale web extension does is it overlays information within the tools you already use. So
Hmm.
imagine that you're
Hmm.
in Salesforce and you're working on a deal, but that customer in that deal mentioned, hey, um, objecting to your pricing. It's too expensive, for example. What Will's going to be able to do is pick up on the fact that in Salesforce that objection is mentioned, and it's
Hmm.
going to automatically suggest information about, hey, this is how we handle this specific objection. And so people are
Hmm.
not going to need to search for it. They're
Right.
not going to need to
It's right in
leave their
front of them.
workflow. yeah, it's right in front of them, and there's no escaping it because it's going to pop up. It's going to say, hey, I see you're working on this. This could be relevant to you. And you can still choose to ignore it. It's very subtle in that way, but it's going to be there when and where it matters. And
Right.
that's what makes all the difference. And we've seen a variety of use cases with this. And one of my favorites is just like we are talking right here on a call. What I could do is turn on the web extension, have it read off the captions of the software, and in real time suggest me things that are relevant on the topic that we're speaking about. So
Wow.
that helps teams in so many different ways. And it's a difference between having information sit still and hoping someone is going, and actually activating it in different places and in different times for different people.
Oh, that's really interesting. Why did you call the company Whale?
So one big aspect of will in which we believe is that, first of all, you do not need to document every single detail in your business. Like if you've got the big outlines of how you want to do things, the major steps, and then some instructions, that's more than enough. And so we're not a big believer in detailing things in 100-page manuals. We like to keep it bite size. So one of the elements in which you create content in Will is through cards. And cards is a small format in which you can leave video, text, and all that stuff. And the idea came in, like, if we fed the system small chunks of information, which doesn't take a lot of time, in the end, it's still going to create this massive, a huge impact and value for the business. And so relating that back to the animal, the whale, which feeds upon plankton, this small microorganism, but becomes this massive thing. We really love that analogy, and that's how whale came to be as a brand.
That's a great name. And I want to get to also sharing, because like not everybody can necessarily has the excess cash flow to be able to, hire a vendor that's going to, go and help document all their processes
Mhm.
and then put them in your system. Some people are going to want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be using some other system or a Word document to document their processes themselves or whatever it is. So it would be great, since you are, immersed in this space, like share some like tips, tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
that people can be using in their business to make it easier, more accessible, more effective when they're documenting processes for their people.
Sure. So one big tip I always give is don't think about documentation always as written words. It can be video, and video can actually be much faster when it comes to explaining something. Um, that's one of the reasons why we build in that screen recording, because if you want to document a process on how to do something in HubSpot, for example, instead of me writing it out, pasting images and all that stuff, all I do is record my screen, and in about 5 minutes, I have an instructional video that's going to explain a process that it would have taken me maybe an hour to make. So
Right.
going with video can be a good idea to speed up the process. I'm still a very big
And
believer.
there's other systems if they're not already working with you
Yeah,
guys. And there's other
sure.
systems like Loom that
Like
are
Loom,
free.
yeah.
You just download the software and you can make these videos and either link to them or whatever you want to do with them. I mean, however you want to deliver it. But
Exactly. It doesn't need to be like high production
right.
value. It needs to be basic. Whatever you find, like Loom is free. And then one big thing I keep mentioning is take it one step at a time. Go for the low-hanging fruit. Find the things that most people are going to be helped with. And so there's a couple of ways to find that information. The first one is look at repetitive questions in your chat tools. Look at the same emails you keep getting, and start
Right.
there. It's going to
Right.
help
They're
you
like
save
piecemeal,
time.
just the pieces that are needed the most
Yeah.
often.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And maybe just start even with the steps, not even the instructions, just the steps in the process, because that's one of the things that most people get wrong. It's not how to do things, it's what to do. What are the different steps we actually need to complete? And so just having steps written down is going to be a game changer. I would also say don't do it alone. If you're going to do it yourself, don't appoint one person to do the documentation. We've had customers do like a process day with their team, in which they sit together one day in a month and they just work on process. They document. They all sit together, either virtually these days or face to face, and they get to it. And it's crazy how much you get done if you do like just one day working on process. Gamify these things as well, or incentivize.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we've seen customers create leaderboards, like incentivizing who has helped build out that documentation the most, and give out like an Amazon gift certificate or whatever to the person having added the most stuff. So there's so much ways in which you can. I would not say it fun, but at least.
Well, it's like Wikipedia. I mean, right? People spend their time for free, like updating articles on Wikipedia. You can basically have the wiki of your company, and people get statuses, and they feel a certain sense of accomplishment from building that out for everyone.
Yeah, we build out actually for that specific purposes, like a badge system in Whale, in which you can incentivize and gamify a bit the experience. And not everyone is going to be excited about badges, but it creates this more light and fun experience towards documenting. So yeah, I would. It's about the first step. It's about the first step, and once you see people getting value from it, you're going to get buy-in from more people than you thought about helping you out, build out more documentation, and in the end, you're going to be. There's actually people that do get excited about documentation. Find them, as that's the first thing you want to do. Find them, detail-oriented people. That really look for structure. They're going to be your champions. So. Yeah, I probably still have a list of more than 100 tips and tricks, but
well, those are a few good ones. I like the idea of starting small, start on the stuff that comes up most often. Doesn't have to be the entire process from beginning to end, on day one. Last question is, I don't know if you could share any particular use cases or examples from any recent clients of like what it was like before, what happened, how did they go about rolling it out, and what happened after?
Yeah, so one case we see often in organizations that are a bit larger with more than 100 or 150 employees is often the IT teams get swamped with repetitive questions. How do we do this? I'm stuck here. What happens after I click on this? Or just systems not being used at all. People paying hundreds and thousands of dollars for Salesforce and then having like 10% of the sales team actually using it the right way. And so before Whale or any other, well, probably before Whale, because other tools are not going to do as good as a job as we do. But before Whale, you would have all of these questions flowing into the IT team. They would get frustrated.
Such a time suck. Yeah.
Exactly. They get frustrated.
They're trying to build products,
Yeah, they're trying to add value through technology, and all they do is tell you the same thing over and over again. So with Whale, you can probably shave off 80% of those questions within the month by just connecting them to the specific places in those tools where all of those questions arise, and really winning back time to focus on more strategic matters. And that's for the IT team, but probably for all teams. But because of that piece of technology that we can connect, we see the IT team being very happy after adopting Whale.
All right, makes me think of one of my clients in particular that has struggled with that a lot, and they almost have to, or what they did actually do is they either hired or dedicated someone mostly to helping other teams rather than working on their products, because there's so much of that. So it makes me I should make an intro with that. But anyway, so yeah, look, I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing all of this stuff. We'll definitely share the link to It's whale.io. Is it get whale?
Use
whale.
Use
Yeah.
whale. Unfortunately,
Usewhale.io.
whale.io was taken and whale.com was very expensive, so we ended up with
Right.
use whale.
Right. That makes sense. My new website, fractionalleadership.io. I'm still, I'm holding out hope of getting fractionalleadership.com one day, but registration.
It's taken?
Yeah, it's taken, and I don't know. Never GoDaddy's a pain in the neck, and I can't reach the owner of it, or if GoDaddy itself owns it. I don't even know. I've been working on it, but I still have fractionalleadership.io. So
yeah, it's pretty good.
But anyways, so appreciate you coming on, sharing all this stuff.
Sure.
Usewell.io, people can learn more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody else on the other side. All the best. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Win Win, an entrepreneurial community with your host, Ben Wolf.